Hey everyone, this is Heidi St. John. Welcome to the Heidi St. John podcast. I'm so glad you guys have joined me. Today I've got two very special guests in the studio with me. Dr. Mark Sherwood and his wife, Dr. Michele, is in the studio with me, and we are going to be answering listener questions. So you guys know that Dr. Mark and I have been answering questions for several years at the podcast, and it's become one of the favorite episodes every week. Every time he comes, these shows make it into the top of the downloads. And so we want to thank you guys. And I'm thrilled today to have them in the studio. I know you're going to want to take notes. So get a pencil and a piece of paper and stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. Well, I'm excited. Okay, so a couple of things, you guys. Remember that if you want to have your question answered here at the podcast, the way to do that is to go to HeidiSt.John.com/Mailbox Monday, and you'll see that my friend Dr. Mark has his own column now. So if you've got a question that you would like to see addressed here at the show, that's the way to do it. I always try to tell people, please keep your questions short and sweet and to the point. And I know it's difficult when you're submitting medical questions because you want to give medical history and maybe just shorten it just a little bit. We appreciate that. Also, if you want to find out where I will be this season, this is my travel season. I'm out on the road all the time. You can go to HeidiSt.John.com/events. All right. Without further ado, I want to welcome the two of you to the show. So Dr. Michele, this is your first time, actually my first time to meet you in person. I'm so excited. Dr. Mark talks about you all the time.
Yeah, she's my queen.
She is. Yeah. He says it. He's not. We're going to talk about that. But you guys run the Functional Medical Institute right out of Oklahoma. Are you in Tulsa?
We are.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Michele, you're a doctor of osteopathy, right? Did I say it right?
That's correct. Yes.
And you are a doctor. You're a naturopath, so a doctor of naturopathy. Is that how you say it? Naturopathy.
Yes, that'll work.
For goodness sake.
Ma'am.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on my podcast. So really excited to have you guys here. Welcome.
Thank you.
We are just so grateful to be here with you, especially in this studio for the very first time.
It's awesome. Exciting, and I get a pretty big charge, I'm not going to lie, out of walking people around the Homeschool Resource Center, so you can kind of see what we're doing here to sort of bring innovation back to education.
You should.
So inspiring.
It's amazing. I mean, everybody that comes here needs to check this out. 100%.
I hope they will. It's also worth noting that you guys have become the major sponsor now of the Heidi St. John podcast. So we're thrilled to be working with you. It really is a match made in heaven because it aligns so well with the mission here. I like to meet listeners at the intersection of faith and culture. And where that collides, there are all kinds of things to talk about, and health is a major part of that. So I'm thrilled you guys are here. You've written several books. I've got two of them in the studio with me today. Tell me a little bit, Michele, tell me about this one.
Well, Fork Your Diet is really on stopping falling for the frauds. Well, what are the frauds? It are the things that are going to disrupt your mind. Fear, resentment, anger, unforgiveness, disappointment, and shame. So that book really kind of dives into the roots of how to pull those roots out and get back to healthy living, heart and soul.
You know, it's interesting. You guys met Chloe.
Yeah.
And I've got some wonderful people that work here at the center. And Chloe was telling me that she sees a doctor and he really believes that the body stores emotions.
Absolutely.
And do you think that's true? Clearly you do.
Absolutely. We may forget, but the body does not forget. It remembers everything from start to finish. It's in the tapestry. It's in the fascia. It becomes part of our network. And sometimes we don't even realize that snag in the fishnet is still there, and we need to go all the way back to the root and unravel it. We may not have to relive the situation, but we need to invest in the healing process and getting that transformed.
How do you tell people to start to do that? I mean, there's a lot of people now that just went, they're kind of leaned in a little bit because it's new to people. But I mean, I'm in agreement with you. I think people that have grown up in trauma, or they've had, let's say they've lived through a nasty divorce or something that's happened in their family, in their marriage, that can stay with you.
I think that to get people to go there is we've learned over time through conversation. You know, we've learned that the mystery is unraveled in the history. And so we ask a lot of questions like there's two questions we ask that really get the waterworks flowing, if you will, when we're working with someone. One is, tell me the time where you were feeling great and then all of a sudden you didn't, and you're going to get a story. And then the second question is this: when was the last time you felt awesome? And boy, you're going to get a pause there, and many times they'll, just the waterworks come on, won't they?
Yeah, yes. And that's oftentimes the very first time that person has looked themselves in the eyes in the mirror. And they're ready to come home. They're ready to come back home to themselves because they're tired of trying a pill or just trying another therapist, or they're trying, another exercise program. They actually really want to start healing from the inside out.
Yeah, and it's a process. It takes time. I had an interview with a physician. He's also, he works in functional medicine. I told you about him, and just an incredible human being. And I did an interview with him just for myself, not for the show. For those of you who are like, wait, I missed that one. It was just mine. Okay, not everything's on the show. But I was talking about some things that I'm going through, and he said, it sounds to me like you're a woman who's experienced a lot of grief. What's crazy is I didn't tell him anything about my life. I was telling him about a physical problem that I'm having. And he said, in Chinese, he started talking about Chinese medicine. And he said, they really believe they were the first to really connect the human body to emotions. And he said, I have a feeling you and your husband have lived through an awful lot of grief, a big grief event. And I just started bawling. I'm like, just sitting in his office. I'm like, how did you know that about me? But I think it's true, right?
Yes.
That all these connections, God made us integral, right? There's lots of different parts to a human being. And it would make sense that our emotions are connected to our bodies.
I always looked at we are physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. And it's like, just like the segregation of medicine has failed, the silo medicine.
Yeah.
Stomach problem, go to the GI doc. You got a foot problem, go to the podiatrist. Well, it doesn't work like that because everything affects everything, and anything can cause anything.
Yeah, ask any man who's married to a woman.
Yeah, women are spaghettis and men are like waffles. It's like, there you go. But we learned over time that you can't get complete healing in your life or your bodies or yourself as a human unless you address all those things together. And I think that
you got to be willing to do the work.
Yeah, from our perspective, I can say this: God's gifted us in that ability to draw that out of people and create a plan to get them working forward and lead them down a pathway of true healing.
I love that. You guys have a pretty neat story. You've been married for 10 years. You just celebrated your 10th anniversary. Michele, you got to give us the quick rundown because I want to hear it.
Of how we met?
Yes,
tell
me.
My goodness. Well, when I opened the Functional Medical Institute, my gorgeous, darling husband, he walked in one day into one of the classes that I was teaching called the Functional 9, and we've been not apart a day since. So it just really kind of happened like that. We shook each other's hands, kind of looked each other in the eye, and
sparks were flying.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, sparks.
It wasn't too long after that he joined the clinic, and we've been running the clinic ever since.
Wow. That's amazing. And are you also from Oklahoma?
I'm not from Oklahoma. I'm actually from Brainerd, Minnesota.
No kidding.
You can hear it in the
Way
voice,
up
can't you?
north.
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay,
Yes.
that's up north. I love that. What brought you down to Tulsa?
Well, my mother was the sole supporter of our family at that time, and she moved us down here to take a job.
Okay.
So
that's a big shift from Minnesota down to Oklahoma.
It was a huge shift.
Yeah. It's a big shift. Well, I'm so encouraged every time Mark's on the show. He's always talking about how amazing you are, and something about not a spare rib, but a what do you always say?
She's my perfectly
Prime
glazed,
rib,
braised, smoking hot prime rib.
smoking hot.
Yeah,
So
I still get a little red.
Yeah.
And there's no L in my Michele. She's
Don't
only
say that in
got
public.
one L in her name. It's really good. So there you go.
I love it. Well, we have a lot of listener questions today, and one of the things that Mark and I have been doing for a long time here is answering listener questions. So thrilled, Michele, to have you in the studio today, and thank you guys for being the prime sponsor now of the Heidi St. John podcast. And I'm thankful for you guys, and just thankful to see what the Lord's going to continue to do. Look excited about that. I'm going to start off with an anonymous listener in British Columbia. Question for you guys: what would you recommend for an antihistamine, and are there any effective natural antihistamines? We have a 17-month-old boy who had a bad reaction to egg whites and has reactions to other foods. And the specialist recommends using an antihistamine for introducing other foods that he reacts to. Well, we've heard that there are side effects to antihistamines, and generally liquid forms have added sugar, which is not helpful. One antihistamine she does not recommend is Benadryl. So we're trying to weigh out the different information. We want your opinion. So let's just start there, because this is a long, Anonymous in British Columbia. This is a little longer than we like.
Long question. That's
It's
like two paragraphs.
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I've got several kids with pretty severe allergies. One who has an anaphylactic reaction. I mean, within 15 seconds, my daughter Sydney, within just a few seconds of her getting near a tree nut, man, I'm telling you what, the reaction time. So I know this is a big deal. A lot of people dealing with allergies. So where do we start?
Well, the body is really amazing in its ability to make an enzyme that breaks down histamine. It's called diamine oxidase. And if that enzyme is insufficient, of course, we're not going to break histamine down quite like we should. Well, there is actually a supplement on the market called DAO, histamine diamine oxidase, which can be taken orally. And of course, it's going to be non-toxic to the system. That is one place to start. Another natural antihistamine is quercetin.
We heard about this in the Rona.
No doubt.
That is correct.
100%.
Yes.
And it has been very effective in helping alleviate those allergy type reactions. Now, it's not going to alleviate an anaphylactic type reaction, so we want to be very specific to not mislead people in that direction.
Also, what we will do, you guys, is we'll make a list of all these recommendations. I know some of the things that they can get directly from you guys.
Yep.
And there are other things that, Mark and I over the years have been like, where do you find that one? And we found it on Amazon. So we'll put a list here for you guys so that you have access to things we're talking about. She says that doctors here are against blood work for allergy testing, saying it's not accurate. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we've done a lot of allergy testing. So there's a couple things to keep in mind for the listeners. When you test for allergies, you also need to test for sensitivities. An allergy response is from the body producing what's called an IgE reaction.
Yep.
That's a antibody, immunoglobulin E. A sensitivity is immunoglobulin G, or IgG. So you need to be able to discriminate between the two. And they can overlap in symptoms. I mean, a good way to remember this is like anaphylactic shock. Allergies can be like time 0 up to about 2 hours, you're going to get a response. Sensitivities, 2 hours or 3 days.
Oh.
And they can get really confused there. We are big believers in doing a test called the dietary antigen test, which looks at both of those and the amount of inflammation it creates in the body. And, you can actually tell what does what.
All right. I love that. What's your take on the pin pricking allergy test? Listen, I had this done. I really want to know what you guys think.
Yep.
Well, the pin prick, of course, is going to be the standard of care in mainstream medicine. So that's where a dermatologist, allergist is going to go every single solitary time. When we're talking about just the food sensitivity and allergy type testing, sometimes when people see those things light up in different colors, that is the first step for them to take action in their lifestyle in changing their core foundational health. And when they start changing their core foundational health, beginning in the gut, guess what? A lot of times those other allergy symptoms get less and less and less, and oftentimes disappear.
Wow. So if someone's going to, if that's being suggested, do you guys say, yeah, that's a good place to start?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's like when you think about this, where is our immune system focused around generally? The gut. And if you get the gut system right, you're going to have a better responsiveness even from the histamine response, right? So everything's connected like we talked about earlier, but that's a great place to start. People should not run from that. I mean, I'm not a big pinprick fan just because that is limiting a little bit, but I'm a big believer.
You're saying do the whole thing. Don't just do this,
The
right?
whole thing, because it can be, especially if you do a pinprick thing, what if it's reactive? And what if you have a bunch of reactivity? You're going to hear these words from the person. There's nothing I can eat now.
Right. It's so true.
Right. And so it goes,
Look, I'm allergic to the air I breathe.
But you can actually quantify what is the most severe as far as the inflammatory response from the top foods we have. This gives you a great way to sort of know what to minimize today versus everything.
All right. Anonymous in British Columbia has one more question in her question. She says that she's heard that food allergies do not cause eczema. Do you agree with that?
I would say that food allergies are very tied to eczema. Now, they don't 100% always go away. That eczema doesn't always go away, but it gets less and less and less and puts the person in line and set up for healing. So when we take the aggravants away from the system has more energy and effort to spend on healing, specifically the skin.
Yeah, and your skin's like the largest organ in your body, right?
It is.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
think about it. The skin's letting things in, taking things and keeping things out. But if you've got some kind of skin responsiveness to your immune system's activation, your body's ability to keep things out appropriately or to let things in appropriately is hindered as well. So it's a big deal.
It is. All right, Cindy in Oregon. You guys are in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to do a local here.
Here we go for Cindy.
Actually, British Columbia is not too far either. We're starting north today. What do you know about neuropathy, feet neuropathy specifically? I deal with very painful feet. Feel like I'm riding vibrations all day long. I've been seen by doctors, chiropractors, and recently gotten Orthodex. Now the Orthodex make the neuropathy worse. So as a homeschool mom of 3, I feel like I sit a lot. I am very active. I do everything from powerlifting to running and walking. This has been going on for the better part of 4 years and just gradually gets worse. Doctors want to numb me with drugs and shots, but in the end, it doesn't help. I do eat a pretty good diet. Neuropathy runs in my family, but at 45, I should be keeping up just fine, and I'm not. I'm really frustrated.
That's a big one, right? So think about this, and we actually talked about this a moment ago before coming on, like the concept of neuropathy. Typically you go down the pathway of nutrient deficiencies like B12, for example. But then you can go back and say, what about genetics? Maybe the person has a transport of B12 problem. So there could be a genetic issue there that's in the family, as you mentioned. But certainly at minimum, a person could do like a micronutrient test and add a good amount of B12.
But I would definitely second that. But also some of the things that can be very healing are like an infrared sauna. That just the healing properties that the rays bring into the system, for one. And then also hydrogen water.
Yes.
That molecular hydrogen improves the absorptive surface in the gut. And what that's going to do is it's going to increase your body's ability to bring in nutrients. So if your gut is dysfunctional, you can take all of the B vitamins in the world, all of the right kinds, the methylated, folate, and methyl B12, but if your gut's dysfunctional, it's not going to absorb it right.
Yeah, and we talked about that Mark and I have really talked about it. I brought my water bottle again for everybody.
There you
it's
go.
so fascinating. So for people who are just now going, wait a minute, what in the world? So I've just started the process here, little 5 minutes. Tell us a little bit about, Michele, maybe I'll start with you, a little bit about hydrogen water and why you guys are such super fans of this, because I have become a super fan of this and I use this thing multiple times a day, every day.
So when it comes to hydrogen water, what does it really do? Well, our body is making free radicals on a moment-to-moment basis just by cellular respiration, what the cells are doing. And if we are...
What's a free radical?
It is something that damages tissue. It makes you age in real time faster than you want to if we don't keep that free radical load under control. Now, the body has a lot of enzymes that it does use to do that.
Okay.
However, those enzymes can become dysfunctional, or we can be genetically compromised in those areas. And of course, we can test that with the tests that we have available now, genetic testing, or we can use hydrogen water. What hydrogen water does is it's going to bind to a free radical, the hydroxyl radical. It's an OH molecule with a negative charge. That negative charge does no good in the body except damage tissue. So the cool thing about hydrogen is when you drink hydrogen water, it binds to that little OH negative and it turns it into 2 hydrogens and an oxygen. Well, what is that? That's water. So it reduces that free radical into
H2O.
Imagine that.
What just happened?
Yeah,
Yes, and what is our body mainly made up of?
Water.
Water.
exactly.
That's amazing. All right. I feel like I just went to church and school. This is really exciting for me. So this is great in fighting inflammation. It really is like, supercharging your water. You're getting the most out of your water. And the process that this little guy is doing is creating this right inside, right? You're making the hydrogen.
You are. The hydrogen's made right down here. It's coming up through the gas. You can see it coming up in the bottle right there real time. And the water just carries it. And It's a molecule that's going to be carried by the water. It's not changing the water into H3O. It's H2O with H2. And so when you drink it, it's just carried in. The unique thing about that is, and people say, well, how does it do that? Remember back in the periodic table of elements, upper left corner, hydrogen is number 1, the smallest element we have. Because of that size, it can penetrate all those cells. And every one of these OH negatives that sort of create heart disease and diabetes and all this mess and cellular destruction are fixed with that water.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting and so simple.
Yep.
And so simple. I love that. All right. Grace in Wyoming has a 2-part question around nursing. I'm 27 and my husband and I are expecting our 3rd baby in a few months. Long story short, I hardly produced any milk with my previous 2 babies that we've had in the last few years, so we resorted to formula. Is there any formula that you would suggest that isn't full of garbage? And 2, what are some other natural things I can try this time to help with milk production?
Well, oftentimes, in pregnancy or being a mom or having a newborn, oftentimes the mother's health gets put on the back shelf.
100%.
So we need to make sure that we're taking a prenatal with all of the right forms of B vitamins in it. It needs to be methylated. Also, 100% of the time when we check labs on an individual, omega-3s and vitamin D are always deficient. What helps make breast milk? Omega-3s and vitamin D. So if we're deficient in those nutrients, we're going to have a hard time with good milk production.
She could get tested, right, to find out if she's deficient in those nutrients.
Absolutely. And of course, if we're pregnant, we're going to want to get those nutrient levels up to the high end of normal instead of just barely in the normal range. So we are actually optimal.
Yeah.
Well, and keep in mind, too, with the breast milk, whatever's coming through that breast milk, even from toxins, the baby's getting 33% of that.
Yeah.
And one thing I would do in this case, what's her name, Grace, is it what you said?
Yep,
So
Grace.
Grace, you get some very good source colostrum, and you can fortify some of that formula with colostrum, which well sourced, again, grass-fed, grass-finished, properly harvested colostrum, and you can actually improve the baby's immune systems and their adaptive immunity skills, right? So I would add that right now, for sure. So you can add vitamin D, omega-3, and colostrum right now to that baby, and you're going to see, just like the hydrogen supercharge the baby.
Yeah, I love that. Now, let's talk for a second about baby formula. I don't have very many good things to say about it, so I'm just going to be quiet. What do you guys think?
Well, definitely if you can breastfeed,
Yeah.
that's going to be the best way to go.
I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's got a bunch of garbage in it. And but if you can't produce the milk, okay, fine. Fortify the formula at minimum with colostrum and just make your formula out of that, because that colostrum is like the amazing stuff.
Yeah, and I know that there are companies now that are working to make baby formula that isn't the garbage Similac that we all sort of remember. And I mean, I'm old enough to remember when they were telling mothers, don't breastfeed, put your babies on formula. I mean, and look at the damage that's been done. It's just absolutely amazing. All right, so my timer went off. You guys heard it?
Yeah, here we go.
All right, so I'm gonna open this.
Be careful. Ooh, nice pressure.
Yeah, so it's got pressure in it.
See the
And
gas
then
come off.
interesting, when I go to drink this water, it doesn't taste different. It doesn't taste, some people think, well, you just carbonated your water, but you didn't.
Nope.
Right?
Hydrogenated.
You hydrogenated your water. And I love that. And it's yummy. I'm telling you.
Yeah, when you drink that, like every sip you take, and that's 8 ounces in that bottle.
I mean, I'm going to age backward while I'm sitting here with you guys now.
You're going to age back. There is something that's the biological aging processes and speeds we've talked about before, and you can measure those right now. We do it all the time, and we see people really age slower compared to the chronological age. Speaking of that, yours truly here, we can test the immune age. Her, she's not a day over 39.
I know.
But her
I'm
immune
not
age
either.
is in the 20s. Isn't that pretty cool?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's not unusual.
Yeah.
It's just not. And I think that from the aging standpoint, the way you start the life and the way you finish the life is important.
Yeah, absolutely true. Anonymous in Las Vegas and Kim in Phoenix says, hi, I've heard you on your show in the past that mammograms are not good. So for context, I had a guest on the show who does thermography. And so we sort of did a deep dive into mammograms and really just questioning the mainstream medicine narrative that we've grown up with, right? Since I was very young, that you got to have a mammogram every year, and you weren't allowed to question. This is just what you did. And she really came on and kind of blew my listeners' minds a little bit, and was just like, actually, we've got kind of a different spin on it. So that's where she's coming from. She said, I was recently told I have a lump in my breast. I need to get a mammogram. Is there another way to find out if it's cancer, or do I have to go ahead with the mammogram? Thank you so much. I love your show.
No.
Thank you.
I'm going to take that one to start with.
Well, first of all, you can look at the breast tissue from a thermogram. Great method of choice to see if there is thermal heat there that needs to be evaluated at a deeper level. Of course, if that does turn out to be, hot, mammogram is going to be the next step, and potentially biopsy.
Would they do a mammogram? So what I was told was, when I had a thermogram done, if they find a heat spot in the breast tissue, then the next thing they would say is go to a level 2 ultrasound.
That's correct.
And then if the ultrasound and the thermogram agree, oh, hey, this looks like this is a potential issue, that's when you'd want to do a mammogram.
Well, that is correct. Ultrasound is very non-invasive in the mainstream system. It is always a fight to get an ultrasound first.
Boy.
However, you can cash pay for
So
that
frustrating.
ultrasound and get an ultrasound done, which they're not inexpensive, but they're not going to break the bank either.
Right.
Well, here's a couple points of note with mammograms, and probably would agree with the thermography expert. When you look at history and studies, that tells us something. Are we seeing... We've been told the story that doing a mammogram prevents breast cancer. Well, that's not true, because it's not preventing anything. It's just taking an image of something that may have been there 10 years. And I think people are over-responsive to that, overreacting. I think it's like trying to unring a bell, like it's a rumor. And so are we preventing breast cancer? I think the answer is probably no. Prevention has nothing to do with taking a picture. So I look at it like this, too, is that, are they bad in the progression we just talked about? No.
It's an excellent diagnostic tool.
At
I just
that
think we're
point.
saying, should we start with the radiation, or should that be the last resort? And I think what I'm hearing you guys saying, so many more voices now coming to the mainstream are saying, no, it should be the last thing you do after you have determined, yes, there's a credible threat, if you will, it looks like you could possibly have breast cancer. That's when you do the mammogram.
Is it getting bigger? Is it getting smaller? One picture, one lab tells you not much, but one or two labs, one or two pictures tells you a trend. That's important information to take an action step.
Well, for those of us who have had mammograms, we would just like to say there has got to be a better way. It's like, here, let me put your breast on this really cold plate and then run over it with a car.
Like, really?
Excellent.
Gosh.
I want to do that.
Interesting way to put it, I guess.
Right. They want to know what you guys think of her scan. I'm assuming that's a thermogram. I don't know. I've never heard of it. Do you guys know what that is?
It's along the same lines as a thermogram.
Okay.
Yep, same
And
thing.
so you're in favor of it, then I would assume.
Yes.
Yes.
Non-invasive is
All
always
right.
best.
I love it. Anonymous in Arkansas. How do you feel about donating plasma? I'm a healthy homeschool mom, and the money sure could help.
I think it can help. It's a good deed, right? We need blood out there, but also be very cautious you don't get anemic, because you can give too much and sort of cause a regression in your red blood cells and make yourself anemic. Don't do that. So make sure you're checking a CBC routinely on that.
All right. Christy in North Carolina. Christy's a longtime listener. So, Christy, thank you for listening to the show. It sounds like we met about 18 years ago. And so I love that. I love just kind of, we're kind of growing up together. Now that I'm at the tail end of homeschooling, I'm looking at Christy 2.0. Health, mind, soul, and body intrigue stimulate me, and I'd like to go into some sort of medical work where I can help other people grow in health in all these areas. What can I do to begin a career of some sort in functional medicine? She's close to 50. She says, I realize I can't very well go to medical school at this point, but is there a job I could do in the wellness field?
Yes. So Christy, you're still a young lady, man.
Come on.
50's not old, and I think that you can go back and a lot of things you can do. Really 3 examples I can give Christy here. Number 1, you could go check out Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint. That's a very good course. We went through it as well. A lot of good information there about how to really help people be kind of a coach, a mentor to people. There's a big market out there for that now. Institute of Functional Medicine has a coaching course that's pretty good as well. And then there's a lot of functional nutritional coaching classes out here that are pretty good as well. So one of those three are fine. All three probably better. Probably the most economical is probably the Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint one. But there's a lot of people out there that need help in that space, and so Christy, you're a mom, about how it is to be a mom and how challenges can be there. So you can probably get in that space and help people.
I love that. And I think, I would guess, Christy, I would just push back a little bit. I mean, 50, not that old. All right. So if you wanted to go back to school, why not? Why not go back to school? I think, this idea that we're washed up at 50 or we're kind of coming to the end of our lives just, isn't true. And I think you take the wisdom that you've learned now, and you get to apply it in a different way. Yeah. And to me, it's exciting because you want to keep moving and keep growing. And I think we're going to see more and more of this, especially if people get healthier.
Absolutely. And, more and more medical practitioners want somebody in their office that can coach their patients. It might not be somebody who is a dietitian, but it's somebody who has a functional coaching certification.
Oh, okay.
For example, my sister is 56, and she just went through a complete functional medicine coaching program.
I never heard of that.
Took her a year, and she is extremely happy. She can set her own hours, do her own thing, do it online from her own home.
Where do you find a program like that?
She went through the Chris Kresser program.
Oh, forgot about that one.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So, and then what does that let her do? I mean, is it pay decent?
It pays with whatever she sets the bar at. If she sets it at $30 an hour, she gets $30 an hour. If she sets it at $120 an hour, she gets $120 an hour. So it's basically up to her or up to the individual what they want to charge per hour. And if they want to put a package together, if they want to put it in, a 4-month program or a 6-month program for a person, it's going to be based upon that relationship that they're developing with the individual that needs help.
I love that. And then people can sort of look around them to see, it'd probably be, I mean, if I was Christy, I'd be looking to see who does functional medicine in my area and develop a relationship.
You need help, I'd call on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Just finding out, like, even if you're just in the office and you're answering the phones, right? That's a great place to start. You're building a relationship.
Christy, you want to move to Oklahoma? Come on, man.
Come on. Awesome. No, look at that.
Yeah, seriously.
I tell you, I know some good people out there. Another question that sort of comes to my mind that's not written down today, goes to the idea of these places that are sort of popping up. They're doing nutritional IV therapy. I went to one. I don't think I've told you this. I haven't talked to you since I did it. But a friend of mine was in town for the show, and we had a little time to kill. And my daughter Sydney works for an IV nutrition company here in the area. And so I was like, hey, do you want to go down and get some glutathione? I mean, come on, let's go down there and do that.
You did it yesterday.
So did you? So I want to know what you think. Tell me all the things.
Well, I think it's absolutely awesome.
Melissa, are you listening? Melissa's going to go get an IV with me next. Come on, girl. It'll be fun.
We actually do it in the clinic. So
do you?
We do. We do Myers cocktail. We do glutathione.
I got a Myers cocktail with a shot of glutathione.
An injection.
Yeah. Well, no, they put mine in my IV, but you can go and get an injection too.
Yes, you can a la carte your nutrients if you want, as long as they mix well together. And then what we also do with the IV is we do hydrogen insufflation, meaning we put it around with a nasal cannula and you breathe it through your nose while you're getting your IV.
Nice.
So we've got 2 for 1.
One IV is called the beauty bag. It's biotin, which is B7.
Yep, that is the one that my friend got. That's what she did.
Yesterday,
collagen.
Before we got on the plane, I did it on Myers, and she did the glutathione just yesterday. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so there's another one, and I'm gonna totally mess this up, you guys. Is it NAD?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide.
Excellent.
So remember that nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Yeah.
It's okay. So I'm understanding that this is kind of all the rage right now, and they're like, you got to come back and do this one. There's a little bit of sticker shock on that one. I mean, I felt like the price tag was Tell me about NAD therapy and why people would consider doing it.
We'll give you some really easy way to do it here.
Yeah.
We do it subcutaneously
Okay.
in our own home.
Oh.
It's not that expensive. It's really not. No.
kidding.
You can get yourself a little bottle of that, and we can teach you how to do these little subcutaneous shots in the belly fat. They don't hurt.
Really?
And so you can
Michelle's
do about
grinning at me like, girl,
It's simple.
are you going to hook me up, Michelle? Help me do this?
Absolutely.
It's not
Okay.
hard. And
Okay.
so this is really cool because she talked about free radicals
Right.
earlier. Okay, so this is the connection. People need to catch this. Free radicals that get built up on a natural basis that are oxidizing other things. They're burning other things, burning other cells.
Mm-hmm.
So when the free radicals get built up, there's a process called redox, reduction of oxidation. So it reduces that. NAD facilitates that reduction process.
Okay.
As we age, NAD production goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So we can take NAD to facilitate the reduction of the oxidation, right? Which goes well with that. You see the
Hydrogen
connection,
water.
right?
Every time you look at it, I'm just going to keep drinking my water.
It's good. So
Okay.
you can take that and use NAD later on in life. And so probably
Michelle going to
around...
be my new bestie, I can tell.
It's awesome. And we do that and probably usually about a third of a meal about 3 times a week. Doesn't mean anything to people, but it's not hard doing this. It's actually pretty
3
cheap.
little shots a week?
Yeah.
3 little shots a
not
week.
hard.
And the biggest effect is going to be in the mitochondria,
Mm-hmm.
which is the powerhouse of the cell,
Yep.
which is what makes energy for you. So as we came through that pandemic, the mitochondria took a big hit, and NAD was one of the ways that we helped the mitochondria become restored.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take glutathione? I heard that you can, and I've been doing this, so don't bring me down too hard. Let me down gentle.
No.
Be nice to me. I heard that you can take glutathione orally. It doesn't need to be a shot. Doesn't need to be. And so, like the chiropractor that I go to, they have it like in a little
It's called
dropper.
S-acetylglutathione.
So
right?
can you do that, or is it a bad idea?
You can do that. The bioavailability, meaning the amount that you actually absorb and utilize from that, is
In the
much
gut.
less than it is either IV or subcutaneously or intramuscularly.
Is it so? In other words, you need to get a shot, right? Or you need to do the IV typically. What if you take it on an empty stomach? Does that help?
I think
no?
it probably does, but I think
Oh,
it goes
you're letting
back
me
to
down
the-
gentle.
Yeah, it's like the gut
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
functionality or digestion process is different between all of us. So, in other words, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably take it, and one person may get really good absorption, one person may not get as much.
So
it's,
intramuscularly, meaning a shot, an injection.
it's going to be in your bloodstream.
How often would you recommend that?
You could do intramuscular once a week. Mm-hmm. Not hard.
Yep. And then what kind of benefit would you see from that?
I don't know. I see probably, you can speak to this too. I see a little more brain speed, less fatigue, ability to recover, but we do so much stuff. I mean, it's like, what does it do? We do so much stuff. It's like, I'm not sure what does what anymore than the cumulative effect. So the mindset is NAD is great. Hydrogen water is great. Good cocktails, Myers cocktail or glutathione or something IV is great. Anything you do to facilitate wellness is awesome.
Yeah.
And it needs to go in that bucket of things that we put into our system that bring about good function.
This is back to the oral. It's going to depend upon the type. If you go liposomal glutathione, you're going to get a better bioavailability and absorption.
Yeah.
And then I would follow up your glutathione with your hydrogen water.
Oh.
So you take your glutathione.
Girl, I'm
and
gonna take a picture of it and send it to you.
Absolutely.
You can tell me. You'd be like, "Oh, Heidi, just throw that stuff away," or you can be like, "No, take it with your hydrogen water."
It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Can you do a little bit better? And the answer is maybe.
I'm
Probably.
actually, I mean, so many people now talking about good, healthy practices, right? And so this company right here in Vancouver, where my friend and I went and had those IVs, I'm telling you what, we laid down in like a massage bed.
Oh, yeah.
And tips you back. And you're getting you're getting vitamins. I got the Myers cocktail, I told you, with a hit of glutathione, and she got the biotin and all that
yeah.
stuff. She got the beauty boost.
Love it.
And by the time we were done, man, we were just like, look at us. This is great. You know, you felt like you just...
It's a different kind of high.
It's like you went to the spa, you know, a little bit.
It is. You gave your body a little bit of love, man. I love that. It's great.
This is so great because I know that these are things that are available to people now in most cities in America. Another thing I want to ask you guys about, since I got you here, and I'm not a doctor since I only play one on my podcast. I have also heard, and I've done it a couple of times pre-pandemic, and then I haven't had a chance to get back to it. But there are a lot of people now who are talking about the benefits of floating, like magnesium, you know, the very high concentrated magnesium water where you can go in and sort of do a floating. Have you guys ever done that?
I haven't done it. Have you done that in your life?
Not specifically, no.
Have you heard about it?
Yes.
What do you think?
It definitely can't hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, magnesium is responsible for over 300 different metabolic reactions in your system. So it's going to be a healthy thing. And the buoyancy of water, you know, it's like being in the womb.
Yeah.
So it's just a calming, relaxing, improves the parasympathetic tone of the system, kind of calms that.
What do you mean by that? When you said what did you say?
You can see your osteopathic coming out right now. It's
see
crazy.
when Mark comes and talks to me, and I'm just like, can you just say that one more time? Okay, so say it again.
Interpret.
So stress is sympathetic, rest is parasympathetic. So we spend so much time
rest,
in the
parachute.
accelerated state, hyperactive, stressed out, moving quick.
Oh yeah.
That magnesium float improves the tone of the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and relax state. That's where we heal.
I should be floating all the time.
You should be. Once a week would be
Once
good.
a week I should be floating every chance I get.
Take care of yourself,
Floating.
man. Like floating on a cloud.
I love that. I love that. Well, and it's encouraging to me just to see, like, rather than, you know, what we've seen in the past, they're getting memberships to these places. Like I know that you can get memberships to IV hydration places, and you can get, because not everybody's got access to you guys in Tulsa. They can't go in, and although I may have to fly down there and just spend a day or two.
Go through the process,
man. Right, at the Sherwood Spa. You should start calling it that. Just I'll help you, Michelle. Just call it the Sherwood Spa.
I like that.
We'll put a new sign out. It'll be great.
People can relax.
Yeah, the Meta Spa. It's fabulous. But these are wonderful because they're moving away from sort of, we're acknowledging, hey, we're under stress, and we're starting to learn the terminology of health again. Like, it's encouraging to me whenever listeners that write in, and I can tell just from the way that they're writing, people are interested in this stuff. They're studying it. I would imagine that you guys have seen a massive uptick in your practice.
You know, it's interesting, like with COVID.
Yeah.
You know, people thought that was a bad thing, and it was horrible. But
you're not going to say COVID was a good thing.
Well,
I mean, it had a silver lining.
The silver lining has been it woke people up to realize we were conned and duped.
Come on.
So I think that's good, right? So for us, it was like a rocket ship. People were seeking us out for that. I think this is going to continue, even with the IV therapies. I mean, you think about this from a big standpoint. It's like people are now retaking what was and always was theirs, which is their health care. We had let it get away from us for a number of years, and it got so far away from us, we don't think about it. And then you go to the doctor and think about this. Is it making any sense at all? We go there to have the doctor tell us what's wrong with us. Think about that. Is that a constructive conversation any way you look at it? Like you and Jay should sit down one day and just say, today we're going to talk about what's wrong with each other.
We have done that.
Well, how does that work for you?
It doesn't work great.
No, it's like there's a place and time for everything, but own the things, take control of your health, and go do these things. And this is a blessing, and it's a silver lining in all this.
I got to say, I will confess, having grown up in Western medicine, my mom was in medicine. So my entire growing up, she worked in pediatric oncology, and then she worked in urgent care. So I grew up, kind of the kid that was behind the desk and just kind of watching my mom work. And so we grew up with Western medicine. And so when you had a problem, we specifically hung out in Kaiser's system, which is garbage. Sorry, but it is.
How do you really feel about it?
I feel so strongly. Anyway, it's difficult to, like, I call it DIY healthcare. I don't love it. I want to be able, Melissa's trying not to laugh at me because Melissa loves DIY healthcare. I don't really like it. All right. I want to be able to I'm used to Kaiser. I want to be able to go there and have them go, oh, you need this amount of, go down the hall and get your blood work done. And then we'll make an appointment. You can come back. Well, now it's like I go to a functional medicine clinic here in town, and they're like, okay, you need blood work. So now you have to go down to this place and over here and get blood work. And then they're going to send the test back, and they're going to send this part to your house. I don't want it to come to my house. No. I just want to go down there and y'all do the test and then call me up on the phone. And I think having to take charge of our health is turning the narrative a little bit on its head into the sort of, because the reality is, Mark, what you just said is true. We actually do need to take control of it. I don't love that part of it, but I do see why, we're the ones who now are doing our own homework, for lack of a better word, right?
When somebody sees us, I mean, they're going to come in there, we're going to talk to them and get a blood test right there.
Yeah.
Just like you just mentioned, right there. We're going to do that.
I just really like that.
And set the tone for them, and then...
So you do that in your office?
We do. Teach them how to do it so that they know, as the consumer, how to do it. Our job is to educate, inspire, motivate. And if we can do that right, man, people really are confident in this DIY.
I went to your office, remotely, because I live in Washington, and then you ordered blood work for me. Remember I told you I thought they were going to kill me? Yeah. I went down there. They looked like 15 vials of blood, and like halfway through, I looked at the guy and I was like, Can people die from this? I mean, like how many vials of blood are you guys?
Be thorough, man.
Yeah, I'm like, how many? And she's like, oh, we're not quite halfway done. And I was like, oh, excellent. So I'm texting Mark, my arm's here, and I'm texting Mark. I'm like, are you actually trying to kill me? And it was kind of a funny, it was kind of a funny experience. I love that you do that, in your office.
Yeah, it's the way to do it. I think if we've learned a long time ago, if you can build a trustworthy relationship with a person, good things happen, and we've done this a lot, so people that come see us, I mean, they get a load of education, and they know what to do. So a lab review is not us looking for the norms at all. We're not looking for that. We're looking for what is the best, what's optimal. And that has nothing to do with ranges. Remember, the ranges are based upon the system that's set up to prescribe medications. So I'm not sure what the ranges are. It's an average of what you get at this population, and the population today is, well, they're unhealthy, aren't they?
Population of sick people.
Yeah, boy, it's true. All right, Marjorie in Alabama says, I'm unable to find any data regarding current cancer statistics. I can find recent data on diabetes, heart disease, and even bird flu in chickens. She's pretty upset about this because she just capitalized chickens.
Oh, boy.
But I can't find any data on past 2021 on the increase in cancer, when so many around me seem to be getting cancer diagnoses. Boy, I'm telling you what, it's true. It's true. People are coming out of remission, people are dying, and all the data suppression seems very sinister. Do you know where I could find updated information? Am I looking in the wrong places, or are all the current cancer agencies and the CDC intentionally withholding current data post-COVID?
Look at NIH. You're going to see some stuff there that's probably more accurate and more current. CDC is typically behind.
As long as Father Fauci, the high priest of the Branch Davidians, is not influencing NIH.
That's right. And but you're going to see data that's sort of tracking slowly in that, because a lot of times when you start tracking disease models, it's a little bit challenging.
Would you guys agree that cancer's on the rise?
100%. I'll make this prediction right now that it's going to cross heart disease as the number one killer in this country in 10 years. It's right behind it right now. There's about, just so Marjorie knows, right now there's about 630-odd thousand people per year that die from heart disease. There's about 600,000 that die from cancer right now. So you're talking 1.2 something million people right now in our country from those two conditions. And you got to go, what in the world is going on?
What in the world is going on?
We are not preventing heart disease, and we're seeing cancer grow. So what we're doing is not working. So when something's not working that bad, I'd probably do something different. Yeah. And that's why we have these good conversations.
One of the major places that I would tell people to look is to turn that food label over and look at the ingredients on the back of the label. If you can't understand it, can't pronounce it, can you imagine what your body is going through? We're putting that poison in our system once a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day, 365 days a year. And Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. However, if it's all these chemically ingredients, can you imagine the stress on the liver, the stress on the cellular system, the stress on the internal organs? I mean, of course, cancer is going to be on the rise. The body is trying to overcome all that toxicity, and we don't stand a chance if we don't take a look at it.
Boy, it's so true. It's kind of terrifying.
One note on cancer people need to kind of get is you go back and look at history. Again, back in Nazi Germany before it went kind of crazy, Hitler, one of the biggest fears they had was cancer. And they had a bunch of research going on. They found that blood sugar, insulin levels, things like that were driving cancer. They found that way back when. And you talk about suppression, that's been suppressed because like you go and get a PET scan, right? What do they have you drink?
Glucose.
Thank you. And what does it light up the cells? It lights up the cancer cells because cancer says, thank you. So that ought to tell you just by deductive reasoning that cancer loves sugar. So why do we continue to get from an oncologist, I'm not knocking anybody, anything, I'm using an example. Why would somebody say, you need calories, go eat? And then why in the same facility they're giving chemotherapy, they would give you a piece of pie? Something is amiss with this whole situation from a logic standpoint. So
it almost feels nefarious.
It's nefarious, it's delusional, and I think it's downright evil. I'll go to that level, and it doesn't make sense to anyone if you sit here and think about it.
And people for a long time, and we were talking about cholesterol, right? And we all grew up with I can't believe it's not butter, and imperial and margarine. What's in margarine?
Oh my God.
I mean, the fact that that's not illegal. I mean, we got rid of butter, which your body actually knows what to do with.
Yep.
And we substituted it with margarine and all these other weird things that your body has no idea what to do with. And now kind of here we are. We sort of grew up that way. And I think people are starting to read the labels. I'm noticing even at Costco, which is super bad, needs to get rid of their dumb DEI thing. We're working on it. But they're actually kind of getting on the bandwagon, and we're seeing more and more of these bigger companies carrying foods where, like you just said, Michele, you understand the label. You can read the label because you want fewer ingredients is always better, right?
Absolutely. And if one of the top 5 ingredients is sugar, put it back on the shelf.
Whoa.
You just got to think about this from the standpoint. Natural foods, the way God made them, is always the best. When mankind tries to outdo nature, it's always going to be mankind falling on the short end of the stick.
Boy, it's true. And sugar is in everything. I mean, we noticed because we started getting real careful about what we were eating, several years back. And I'm like, your ketchup is full of sugar.
High fructose corn syrup.
It's crazy.
Yeah, high fructose corn syrup.
It's just so crazy. Ugh. One more question. Anna in Tennessee, she says, hey guys, my husband is 34 years old and has a strong family history of dementia. His mother had early onset dementia in her 60s. I have heard that functional mushrooms would be good for him to start. Are there any other things that we can be doing to lessen his chances of developing this as well? He isn't having any current memory problems at this time.
So, Anna, here's a bunch. So get your pen out and start writing. First of all, you want to know the genetics of the family genetics. There is a group of proteins that sort of create susceptibility in some family lines for Alzheimer's dementia. And that would be like the apoE, apolipoprotein E4. Think apoE4. If you have that, susceptibility goes up. But this is not a death sentence at all. This does not mean you're going to get it. It just means that and this is a key, the standard American Western diet within that conversation with your genetics increases the odds substantially of developing brain disease. Dementia is kind of an idea of type 3 diabetes too. So think blood sugar issues of the brain. So when you think about this, do you need to improve your immune system? Of course. Mushrooms like shiitake mushrooms, some of the mushroom coffee, absolutely, good deal. But you got to change the diet. You got to know your genetics. And I'll give you one more thing. Think about molecular hydrogen inhalation too. That goes across the blood-brain barrier.
Where does someone get that?
Well, you can reach out to us, and we'll make sure we put a link on your site, homeschoolhealth.com, right? You can actually buy a machine for your home. And again, they're a little pricey, I guess. You're looking at probably a couple $1,000s, but the cannulas, you can just use it for years. It's not that expensive when you think about that. You're talking about so I don't think.
Then you can sit there with your red light,
Red light,
and drink your hydrogen water,
hydrogen, just
breathe in the hydrogen.
make your own spa. I don't know, right?
Hey, I'm about it, okay?
But that whole thing, man, is like and I want Anna to know this. The genes don't cause that. They don't. And so we need to have some confidence there. So don't buy into that mess that you got.
That just because your mother had it, or
No.
Well, the genes are the loaded gun. It's the environment that pulls the trigger. So if the environment is toxic or nutrient deficient, here comes the trigger. Here comes the disease. Here comes it rolling downhill. So we can prevent it if we know what to do.
Yeah, cool. There's a characteristic of Alzheimer's dementia that's got you get this increase in tau protein damage and beta amyloid plaque. We hear those terms a lot. And what is the thing that you can do to improve the clearance of those? What's been shown? Hydrogen. Isn't that crazy?
we're just going back to hydrogen.
It's the same. It's molecular health at the mitochondrial level. That's what it is right there. And so if you can make your body work better.
Doesn't
it
the
will
red
defend
light
itself.
also work with the mitochondria?
It does.
It does.
It does. Combine it all. I mean, and more things you do to help the mitochondria, the win you have.
I love that. We've got a couple minutes left. I want to ask about something that didn't come from a listener, but I'm hearing more and more people who are struggling with this, including myself, and I would say it's brain fog. I hear more about this post-COVID than I have ever heard in my life. People who say that their short-term memory is not good. You walk out of the room and
Who was that?
what am I doing? You go back and this happens more and more and more. I'm wondering, is this something you guys are seeing increasing? And what are some things that we can do to sort of help clear up brain fog?
Well, I mean, first things first is to look at the labs. Have the hormones become compromised? Has the thyroid become compromised? What's going on with the adrenal glands? Kind of get a baseline so you know and understand what's happening there. And then go through a good detox. We're going through, today is actually the first day of us starting a 2-week detox.
Really?
And we do it on a quarterly basis. We bring all our patients on board with us, everybody that'll join us, for the simple fact and reason that if you give the body a rest from the incoming offending agents, it heals, it clears, it cleans itself up. So going through a 2-week detox oftentimes will clear up some of that brain fog, maybe not all of it. The next thing to do would, of course, be to make sure that you're getting the right amount of rest or sleep, because if you're not getting rest or sleep, you're going to be behind the 8 ball the next day when you wake up. So sometimes some sort of a sleep tracker to see if you're actually going through the 4 phases of sleep can be really helpful. There might be something that needs to be addressed in your later hours in the night, or it might be the fact that you need progesterone or something to help you sleep through the night so you wake up rested.
And there are things you can take to improve the brain functionality, and there are things that we know are commonly deficient that improve that take away the cognition. And a couple things that are deficient are vitamin D and omega-3. We see those a lot.
Yeah.
D, everybody needs to be at least on 5,000 IUs of D, which is 125 micrograms or more. And then with omega-3s, which we've seen deficient 100% of the time for the last 15 years, 3 to 4 grams. And the brain needs that. And we've been experimenting recently with bioregulators, which are bioregulating peptides that can rebuild the brain tissue and make you have more brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is like fertilizer for the brain. And then my wife mentioned hormones. This is a big deal because what did COVID do? It put a lot of stress and strain on the bodies. Stress and strain on the bodies causes your hormone production to go down and that's supposed to happen that way. So if you think about this, when does cognition problems begin in most people? Not when they're younger, when they're older, but what goes down in production is some of their hormones as well. So those need to be on top of the game.
When you mentioned post-COVID, again, what gets injured or what got injured in COVID is the mitochondria. So dealing with that oxidative stress load, that's where your NAD can potentially come in. That's where your glutathione can potentially come in. And then even looking into something like methylene blue, which helps recover the mitochondria.
I saw RFK on a plane. Did you guys see this picture of
Is
him?
he doing methylene blue?
Yeah, he was. And the internet just lost their minds
I
over
think
it.
that's-
Everyone's like, this is what's wrong with him. He's eating, he's drinking, he's putting methylene blue in his water.
It's good for you.
You seem to think that was a good idea.
Well, it
The
can
studies
be.
and the things behind methylene blue are positive.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
of course, you don't want to overdose on it.
Right. Well, I'm just like anything else, right? I mean, you can take too much vitamin D. I mean, it's just,
The microdosing is about 0.5 to 1 milligram per kilogram, which kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So people can do the math in your head. So for a 200-pound adult person, microdosing would be like about 80 milligrams of methylene blue. That is not shown to be toxic, and it has been shown to be helpful for oxidative stress and even brain function.
interesting. Well, and I think there's a lot that we're finding out, obviously, just about how the brain works. But I do think it's interesting. I hear so many people say, my brain is not functioning like it should. And I feel like I'm too young to be like, what? If I don't track with somebody in a conversation and just let my mind wander for half a second, I mean, I can't remember what we were talking about. It's kind of ridiculous. And people are always like, well, it's getting older. I don't think so.
No,
I mean, obviously that certainly doesn't help.
there's one thing that we can all do, and goes back to simple principle. Even with that, we can say this to ourselves where God hears it because it agrees with him. I'm thankful that I have perfect memory and don't forget anything. Mm-hmm. I'm thankful that I have good cognition. I'm thankful that I can remember wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing, and be in that thing at every stage of the game. I have no cognitive decline. Mm-hmm. Right? Now that matches up with what God says. So I think when you look at the care or reversal of certain things, we have to think about all things in that contributory manner, which is good. So no brain fog allowed.
I love that. Last question today, and this is another one, and Mark, you and I have talked about it a lot, but it goes back to something you were just saying a minute ago about checking your hormone levels. So many things that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis can be understood by just understanding where our hormone levels are at. When you talk to women, what do you recommend that they look for if they go to have a hormone panel?
As far as the labs, or are you talking about symptoms? Or
Well, maybe we'll start with symptoms and then talk about labs.
So if you're suffering from brain fog, if you're suffering from depression, if you're suffering from the inability to sleep at night or chronic insomnia, now, or you're losing your drive, you're noticing that your skin is changing, you're having hot flashes, you're having night sweats. All of these can be signs or symptoms of hormone insufficiency or deficiency, and these things can show up far sooner than menopause. Oftentimes 10 to 15 years prior to that, hormones can become unbalanced in some way, shape, or form. So to have a good broad-based brushstroke of all of those hormones looked at young in your life so that you have a comparison to what's happening later in your life is something that should really happen.
Yeah, it's important. And so you guys do that too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they can reach out to you and you can order a blood test. People don't have to live in Tulsa.
No.
I mean, I don't live in Tulsa, and y'all sent me out for 15 vials of blood. So I mean, that happened right here in Washington.
Well, I think the lab probably drew a few too many because they didn't know how to read. But other than that,
Make sure they got it
that's
right.
a big
I know.
deal,
I was
man.
like, what's Mark trying to do? He's trying to kill me.
Hormones are helpful, though. They really are. Think about them as emails.
Yep.
And if you think about them as emails, this being your CEO trying to email the divisions of your body, which are organ systems, that's kind of how you look at it. And they work great. Somebody asked me, I was on a show, and they tried to do one of those got you questions about RFK. Hey, you think he's on the hormones?
Yeah.
And I just stopped and thought about it. I said, I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I hope so.
You guys were the ones that found that that I was really low in testosterone.
Yes.
Put me on a little bit of testosterone cream, and I started sleeping better at night. It was kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Kind of amazing. People are struggling with low sex drive. I mean, so many things that we can just do a little bit of sleuthing around, and your blood tells you an awful lot.
It
does.
That's for sure. Well, this has been awesome. If people want to find you guys, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, they can go to Sherwood.tv, but they could also go to homeschoolhealth.com. How about that?
We love that.
Yeah.
It's easy. A lot of people in my audience do homeschool their kids, so we loved that.
Homeschool Health.
Homeschoolhealth.com.
Yep.
And then a lot of things that we talked about will be there. So if you guys are looking for the hydrogen bottle, for example, that I've been drinking out of today, or we didn't talk about this time.
Oh, man.
We hit it last time, but Kingdom Skin.
Beauty. That is the best cream ever, man. If you think you want your fine lines to go away, and look at that. I mean, do I need to say anything else? I'm sitting between two ladies with had perfect skin. Really, seriously, man. There you go.
This is good stuff, and really one of the questions I get, it's kind of embarrassing, so I don't usually bring it up on the show. And in fact, I've got a question in the queue. People asking me, "What's my beauty routine? What am I doing with my skin at 55 years old?" This is a part of that, and it's important. And there are lots of things that we can do. I also was telling Michelle, she doesn't have one yet, girls, but I'm going to get her to get one. I have a red light mask.
Yeah.
And I love it.
A Jason mask.
It's a Jason. It is pretty scary. Yeah, it is. It's a little scary side. I told him my dog was like freaked out the other day. He came in the bedroom. He was like, what's going on? But, if I do that about 15 minutes every other day. I've benefited so much from red light therapy for inflammation, pain, your skin. There's just so many things. So this is great. You guys can find this stuff at homeschoolhealth.com or sherwood.tv. Mark and Michelle, you guys are hope dealers. I'm so thankful that you're here. And I hope we get to do this again. I said, next time you guys are in town, come on over. We'll record again.
We're great.
We are so excited.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
If you guys want more information on my guest today, you know how to do it. Hop on over to HeidiSt.John.com/podcast. Listen, you guys, I know you got a lot on your plate, right? And I know sometimes the DIY health thing's a little bit frustrating, but I'm here to tell you it really is your body and your responsibility to take care of it. And people like Dr. Mark and Dr. Michelle are here to help. And so I hope you'll take advantage of all of the things we've talked about on the show today. If you want more information, hop on over to the show notes. Lots of things that we talked about today that we'll put in the show notes, and lots of things available at the Functional Medicine Institute, and those will be found at sherwood.tv, and you can go to homeschoolhealth.com. They're both going to take you to their website. But you guys, listen, I think that God has so much more for you than to live feeling sick and discouraged and frustrated. So I hope you'll take them up on their encouragement today. Drink some hydrogen water, you guys. Come on. We can toast to our health, drink a little bit of hydrogen water, and let's see what the Lord does. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to submit your questions to me at HeidiSt.John.com/Mailbox Monday. We want to hear from you. Thank you for leaving reviews for the show. Give us a 5-star rating, you guys, and leave reviews. That helps us with distribution and puts this podcast within grasp for other people. So we appreciate you guys doing that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you back here again at the intersection of faith and culture.